Hello guys, and welcome to my very next vlog, my next discussion, my exploration, my journey of discovery into various new ways of thinking, new ideas, new concepts, exploration of mindfulness and myself. And I want to share these ideas with you, continue to do so, and hope you continue to explore these ideas, incorporate them into your lives, and see how they can benefit you. And today we're going to be discussing how you can take back your power. So what do I mean by this, taking back your power? Well, before I can discuss that, I need to talk about influences and how things in our lives influence us. And in understanding what things influence us, you can be in a better place to understand what really influences you and what you choose to allow to influence you. So let's discuss the three levels of influence. You have the world as a whole, which is an outside influence. You have the environment, which is also considered an outside influence. And then you have me, or yourself, an internal influence. And these are the three levels of influence. And these levels of influence are what determine how we see the world, are what determine how we choose to behave and react to the world. So what do each of these levels of influence include? So there's the world, and this would include things like the weather, religion or politics. Then you have our environment, a second external influence, which you consider, or rather which would include things like friends, society, family, or the economy. And then we have the one internal level of influence, me, or you. And this would include my body, my attitude, and my choices. Now, why is it important to understand these levels of influence? Because it's important to understand what can potentially influence our decisions and our choices. And if we come down to the crux of it, if we're honest with ourselves, the only real influence that can determine, or at least should determine, the choices that you make and the thinking and the beliefs and the concepts that you choose to run around in your head are those within us, our internal influences. But unfortunately, in this day and age that we live in today, most people believe that outside influences determine the experiences that we have. Outside influences are the main precursor, or the main condition that determine our experiences. At the end of the day, only our internal influences can determine the experience that we have. Only once we master ourselves can we become a master to others. Can we assist others in learning, in growing within themselves? But we have to be willing to understand that it is these internal influences that we have that determine our experiences. As long as we continue to blame everything outside of ourselves, we give away our power. And empowerment comes via personal responsibility. When you take back responsibility for the choices that you make, for the way that you think, and recognizing and in making those choices, in choosing to think the way that you do, determines how you experience a situation. When you start to recognize that you choose how you want to feel, you choose how you want to interpret a situation, you choose how you want to react in any given situation. And you recognize that your choice in that situation determines the experience that you have. Now, you could always choose to resist what is, or you could choose to understand it, let it go, and move forward. But at the end of the day, simply put, your choice determines your reality. Now, when you blame outside influences for everything that happens in your life, for the unhappiness, for the suffering within your life, well then you have no power. You give your power away. Because in essence what you're saying is, I have no control. I can't determine how I feel about this. this individual or this experience or the failing economy is the cause for my unhappiness. Well, there's nothing I can do. Economy's failing, weather's bad, my boyfriend dumped me, my girlfriend dumped me, whatever the case is. I have no control. I'm sad because of that. And as long as you continue to do that, as long as you continue to blame all of these outside influences, well, then you can never truly be happy. You can never truly control your happiness because you're always contracting it out to others. You're always saying, my happiness is dependent on another. My happiness is dependent on outside influences. I can't be happy unless the world makes me happy. And it's this constant scenario that I see happening a lot in society today. We always blame others for our unhappiness. We always blame others for our insecurities, for our feelings of, what's the word I'm looking for? Offendedness, if that's even the right word. I'm offended by what you've said. And in doing that, in basically saying that you've offended me, it means you have no control over that emotion. You have no control over the way you think. I can't control my offensiveness, so you have to control your ability to say what you feel. As long as we live in this world where we consistently outsourcing our power and giving it to others without receiving any benefits in return, how could we possibly control our lives? So in essence, what I'm really trying to say is that in order to take back your power, you need to take back responsibility. You need to be honest with yourself that responsibility lies with you, that your ability to determine your experience is determined by your choices. When I say, yes, the experience that happened to me may not have been enjoyable and may not have been the preferred way that I would have wanted things to go, but I recognize that how I choose to think about it, how I choose to feel about it will determine how I experience it. I take back my power. I choose what I want in life. I choose what I want to feel. I choose what I want to think. And in doing so, I don't allow society to tell me how to think. I don't allow society to tell me what to think. And I don't allow the world around me or my environment to determine what I should think. But more importantly, I choose to live authentically, from the heart, to live an existence that feels right, to live an existence that comes from a higher source, that I filter through my heart and I know comes from a place of love. And as long as I do that, nothing controls how I live my existence. So I challenge you in this week to start changing your thinking, to become aware of the way that you think, to recognize when you're being negative, to recognize when you're blaming anything outside of yourself. Because this is a path to mindfulness. This is one of the concepts of mindfulness, to become aware of your thinking, to recognize how your thinking determines your experience. And this is just one of the concepts, this is just one of the factors associated with empowerment, with self-development. Become aware of who you are and how your thinking and your concepts and the beliefs that you have determine the experience that you have. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there, otherwise I could waffle on this for days. And let's touch on the good news for this week. So here's the good news for this week. And it's not always this huge story that kind of influences and affects a large number of people. But in this particular story, it's a kind deed. And it's a kind deed done by police officers. And unfortunately, in the world we live in today, there are so many negative perceptions of the police. Not to say that they don't deserve it. There's unfortunately a large amount of corruption and toxic masculinity that exists within specific that area of the world. But that aside, I'd like to touch on a small story that really has profound influences, because I think it is a good example of how we should choose to want to live our lives as individuals. And in this story, the good news for the week, 2 police officers from Tukwila Police Department or area in the Washington area of America saw a young boy walking in the streets with no shoes. And I think his feet may have been bleeding at the time. They just looked in bad condition. And these 2 police officers decided to do a good deed. And they walked up to him and they asked him why he wasn't wearing any shoes. And his response was that they just didn't fit him anymore and he couldn't afford new shoes. So while the one police officer kept him company, the other went out and bought him a new pair of shoes. And this is really a beautiful story and a wonderful story, because I think it exemplifies what we should all be striving to do, is in those moments where we see someone in need, whether they feel like they're in need or not, but where you see an opportunity to help, an opportunity to do some kindness. In that moment, you do it. Kind of trusting those three-brain process that I touched on previous weeks in last week's video. If you're interested, and if you haven't watched the Three Brains video, then I'll put the link down below. But this trust, and trusting your instinctive gut, filtering it through your heart of love, and then allowing your brain in your head to simply tell you what to do. To go out, spend a little bit of money because you know you can, and helping out a child. And the reason I want to express this story, the reason I want to express this story is because it's those small things that the individual can do. And even though previous stories have been about how kind of governmental forces have changed and affect good, I think it starts with us as individuals. And it was Gandhi who said that you need to be the change that you want to see in the world. So many people find it easy to complain about everything that's wrong. We should change this, we need to use less plastic, we need to start cutting out single-use plastics, we need to start saving the environment. But they don't take the steps. They're not the initial individuals who do that. They kind of tell everyone else they should do. We should do this, we should do that. Why isn't the world doing that? And expecting the government to take the first step. Well, I think it's pretty simple, and if you're honest, as I am with myself, because I'm not one of those individuals, I need to be that too. We need to be the change that we want to see in the world. We need to choose to make that change. And in doing so, be content with that. And then when we are preaching, if you will, to others and in agreement with how we should be changing the world, we know within ourselves that that's how we're choosing to live. And hopefully others will choose to continue to do the same. Anyways, that's my good story for today. Two amazing individuals, who cares whether they were cops, chose to do something kind for a young child, another human being. And in doing so, it became news. And this is the kind of news that you should be hearing, not the news that we hear on the news. I'm not saying don't hear bad news. It's important to know what's happening in the world, but can't they make 90% of the news good stuff, encouraging, inspiring people to want to be more like that? And then 10% can be, okay, the stuff that's happening in the world, it's not good, we're making a change, we're trying to affect that. But more importantly, it's the good that we want to see, and in seeing more of the good, that's more of what we become. Anyways, once again, for fear of just waffling on, because I can do that, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's talk. I really enjoyed it. It was a little bit inspired and just kind of coming at the moment, a little bit less planned. If you enjoy this talk and you want to see future talks, please be sure to subscribe on Facebook, or send me a friend request on Facebook, and subscribe on YouTube. That's it. Otherwise, thanks again. I've enjoyed this, and I'm enjoying doing this. I'm going to continue to do so. All the best. Namaste.